Mr. Chairman and Commissioner of the TRC. I'd like to thank you both very much for inviting me to deliver a paper on the topic, the historical overview of religion and culture in Liberia, the Islamic perspective. Where with the time allotted, time is not in my favor, to deliver, because when we are looking at the historical perspective of religion and culture in Liberia, it's very elaborate. But first, for the sake of time, I would like to concise this. First of all, religion, according to, it's good for us to define what is religion. Maybe many people don't understand what is religion. People, when your own belief, you want to look at your belief as, as religion, because some people even say that their belief, not religion, is a way to God or something like that. So let's define what is religion. Okay, according to Professor Walter Holden Capps of the University of California, it's an organized system of beliefs, ceremonies, practices, and worship that center on one supreme God or the deity. For many, he added that religion involves a number of gods or deities. Some people have a religion in which no specific god or gods are worshipped. So that's religion. Okay? And culture, according to Conrad Philip Kotak, professor of anthropology, says that culture is a term used by social scientists for a way of life. Culture is a way of life, as our brother just defined. Every human society has a culture. Culture includes a society's acts, beliefs, custom, institution, inventions, language, technology, and values. A culture produces similar behavior and thought among most people in particular society. To learn about culture, one may ask such questions as these. What language do the people speak? So in Liberia, what language do we speak? What do the people of the society wear? What do we wear? How do they prepare their food? What kind of work do they do? How do they govern themselves? How do they judge right from wrong? So that's it. But in my paper, I try to find a correlation between culture and religion, because sometimes it is easier for religion and culture to exist, but sometimes they tend to conflict. So in the light of definition given above, it can be discerned that religion and culture have several traits in common. First, no one is born with either religion or culture. Nobody is born with that. Okay? They are acquired. I was not born with a religion. I was not born with a culture, but I came and met them here. Second, they are handed down from generation to generation. Third, they satisfy human needs in certain ways, and finally, they can be used both for good and bad. So if religion is used for good in our society, then my people, as we progress in this paper, will explain that, whether religion has been used for good or bad in our society. It should be made clear here that there are a continuous conflict between religion and culture, but based on a human inherent and deep concern about their salvation, religion has very often triumphed. Religion has always triumphed over culture. Besides, there is a natural tendency to present oneself as the preeminent, while the rest are considered oppositions. There are some of the reasons why, these are some of the reasons why religion sometimes adopt political tendencies. There is this ongoing rivalry to be the preeminent faith in the society. Zero tolerance to any opposition to the effect. In this veins, it is safe to say that religion has been the most divisive element or two in our society. So we can make that thesis statement. In the past, I don't know whether the minister there just made reference to religion and culture in our society, and he said that he made reference to the fact that the conflict religion was not natural. The conflict in our society was not natural. Okay, those were things that were created. For instance, in the past, when people saw someone with a big gun in Liberia, they said this guy was a Mandingo man. And everybody they saw in the past praying, bowing down to God in the prayer, they said, well, this guy was a Mandingo man. You know, so it was not something natural. It was something that was created because in the past there has been a coexistence, a mutual coexistence among the tribes in this country. The tribes, you know, I will come to that, but you know, I just want to make a reference to that. You know, that in the past, Mandingos, you know, everybody who pray and bow down to God was considered Mandingo. But later on, after the crisis, they saw, you know, white people, you know, black people, and other people started buying now. So I don't know whether we consider those as white Mandingo or black Mandingo or something like that. But anyway, it was not natural. It was something that was created. It is a general belief among those who are Christians in Liberia that Liberia was founded on Christian principles. Moved as it might be, several instances in Liberian history inform us of the contrary. First, the 1847 Constitution did not consider the Aborigines of Liberia citizens as ascribed to those who were considered civilized. Those who were Christians were considered civilized. So if you become a Christian, you become a citizen of the Republic of Liberia. Okay. And second, the way the Republic of Liberia at the time, but then the majority of the people in the Republic were in the hinterland. Okay, the Republic of Liberia at the time lived condescendingly with the rest of the people inside. They said, oh, those people were not civilized, so we could not associate with them. So they lived condescendingly with that. And a report from Marcus Garvey group, the confidential report during Charles W. King time, disclosed that, you know, that the government of Liberia the people of Liberia were living condescendingly with the rest of the people in the society because those people were not Christian. Third, although Islam existed in the territory considered Liberia today centuries before the coming of Christianity, Islam did not have any major role to play in the political organization of Liberia. Although Islam made a lot of inroads, Islam did not have any major role to play in the political organization of Liberia. Mandingo, who are synonymous to Muslims, were not considered civilized. This misconception still lingers and permeates in the thoughts of many Liberians who are not Muslims or Mandingos. Still today, when you say you're Mandingo, they say you are not Liberian. Few years before now, Mandingos and Muslims were arrested and incarcerated just by the enunciation of their names. This goes in line with the historical development of religion and culture in Liberia. Mandingos and Muslims were killed, their property vandalized and confiscated for no reason during the civil crisis. Some other Liberians approved of this and were saying, let the Mandingo go back to where they come from. I'm a witness to this. Mandingo should go back to where they're coming from. They come from Guinea. Mandingos and Muslims are still being asked about why do they want to hold elected positions. Some people go to the extent of saying that they would prefer to risk everything, not to risk the leadership of this country into the hands of Mandingos who are Muslims. Some other Liberians, most of whom claim to be Christian, will become furious if they hear that Muslims are advocating for holidays. Even yesterday, so the guys, they get passing me. In fact, other guy threatening that you're going to hit the other man, the man with the gun. Let the man get out in front of me. You know, so this is to where the hatred has come. But the hatred, as we said, was not natural. It was not a natural hatred between among people, but this was a creation. As we progress, we'll see this. But it behooves the research to give us some historical analysis of where we came from as a people, you know, because there are values that, you know, our nation must share. So if the people within that nation do not understand where they come from, then it becomes a very difficult thing to coexist. It is true in political science that politics is a fruit of history. A nation that loses its history loses the true essence of its existence. although there has not been much research on the ethno-historical impact of tribes in Liberia, but we were very lucky to have seen a few documents. Okay, ethno-historical research on Liberia informed us that all the inhabitants of the republic came at various times. We all came to this country. We didn't meet anybody here. We all came here. Liberian historians have identified 4 ethnic streams that make up the natural inhabitants of this republic. They are the male-speaking people, that the Dane and the Gola. Those are the first. Then the Mande-speaking people that constitute the majority. That is the Lawmans, the Pele, the Madingo, the Bandi, the Gisi, the Va, etc. Gio, Bele, and Mano. And the Kwa-speaking people, the Kru, the Grebo, the Basa, the Kra. And finally, the settlers. The settlers came as a 4th ethnic stream, so they were the last to come. But the settlers, or the Americo-Liberians, and the Congos, recaptured slaves. The Congos were recaptured slaves. But there was some historical interconnectivity of the tribes, that historical interconnectivity because of the geography of where they were living. The Mande family tree presented, you realize that there is a serious historical tie or relationship among the Mande-speaking people. The Mande-speaking people comprise of 30 tribes in West Africa, and we just have about 11 of them in Liberia, and they all have historical or primordial values. They all share the same primordial values. The Pele, the Loma, the Bandi, the Mende, the Va, the Dan, etc. The Mande-speaking tribe comprise of 30. Evident to this common origination, for instance, there are certain phrases that still remain today the same. For instance, if the Madingo asks you, what is your name? The Madingo say, Itodi. The Gil man say, Itode, right? And the Mano man say, Itoledi, something like that, right? Then the Va man say, Ituo. So, there's this kind of language relationship that indicates or justify the historical relationship that they have. Another example is the ear. When Maningo man say ear, he says toe. And the Gil man and the Mano man say toe. Okay, and the Va man say toe, the same thing. The country Lofa got its name, for instance, another thing. The country Lofa got its name from the Madingo phrase. So Lofa was not a name given by the government in Monrovia. Lofa was a name that was already there, existing before the founding of Liberia. The actual transliteration of it is Lowefa. Lowefa means the market has full. The market is full. It was a common center, a trading center for the Condu Empire, Condu Confederacy, controlled by King Boso, with the Western Madingo, that is in Musadu, connecting Liberia to Bobolu. So that was the trading center. Okay, a society. So that, but I would just like to give how the tribes were living before the coming of the Republic of Liberia. According to Warren L. Dazevido of the University of Nevada, in his essay titled Tribes and Chieftain on the Windward Coast, diverged that there were a number of types of political units coexisting among peoples known as the Gola at any point in their history, but also that these types had a general distribution among all of the Western interior. The predominance of one tribe, of one type in a sub-region could not be attributed to the ethnic patterns, but rather to the historical circumstances. Furthermore, the historical circumstances that we just given. Furthermore, the local histories of these units revealed that they had developed on a basis of intricate ethnic and structural compromises among participating groups. The second annual conference on social science research in Liberia, Indiana University, May 2nd, 1970, disclosed that there were in the 19th century, at least 4 types of political organizations in the western Liberian hinterland, represented by numerous contemporaneous and interacting units. The first of these was the migrant band, composed of a leader accompanied by a group of his kinsmen, together with any number of unrelated followers and slaves wandering around the advantageous situation. The second type of organization was the conservative village chieftain, in which land ownership and authority were vested in the patronage of the founder. The legends of origin of all such chieftains invariably describe the founder as a part of a group of migrants who settled in the area and built the first town. The third type of organization may be the term the exploitative expanding chieftain. These were larger, more heterogeneous units which had incorporated numerous attached subgroups in the interest of the increased population and effective exploitation of the natural and social environment. Rulers of chieftains of this type were most frequently men of great personal wealth or prowess in war. A fourth type of organization was the confederation of these different kinds of units into larger entities under the domination of a powerful chieftain or despotic warrior ruler. The emergence of Sao Boso as ruler of what was known as the Condu Confederacy at Bobolu in the early 19th century is almost the single reference to such an arrangement in the literature of Liberia. So you realize that there were a lot of kings, there were a lot of chiefs, and they had a tradition, they had a glue that was holding them together. Okay, they used to relate to one another, although some of them were despotic, some of them were warriors, you know, but they had truces that some of them signed, and they had some cultural relationship that made them to coexist. A critical feature of these units of any type is that they were rarely, if ever, ethnically homogeneous. In a particular territory, the group were not homogeneous, but they lived together. Matters of cultural nature were resolved according to cultural prescriptions. The various ethnic groupings guarded their culture and tradition jealously. In this light, tolerance for one another belief was fundamental to the stability of the chieftain or political unit. So tolerance for one belief and culture was very fundamental. Treaties and truces were entered into and respected by all. Some even signed perpetual tribal truces, some of which are still practiced today. Dr. Cassell disclosed that all government among the tribe was based on a communal pattern with priests, kings, later chieftains, councils, laws, rules, and regulations, religious ceremonies, and tribunals. He said that this government functioned smoothly and effectively, especially prior to the introduction of the Western civilization. The priests and kings held absolute authority over the material and spiritual affairs of their people. These offices were held for life and were generally hereditary. After just giving this the political coexistence of the tribes in Liberia, I would also like to look at how language has been very important in uniting the people. You see, for us in Liberia, in the past, people have proposed that we should have a single language in this country, because the power of language, cannot be underestimated. You see, the power of language is very preeminent. So, according to PEH here, 1967, the people known as the VAR, for example, were probably not in their present position on the coast before the early 16th century, and this is confirmed in European accounts, as well as in the tradition of all surrounding people. In their own tradition, as well as those of the Gola, they originated from small bands of Mandingo. So people, we just want to make some clarification on, how from time to time people have perceived Mandingos in Liberia. Like you see, I just gave you a reference that the VAR, originated from the Mandingos. Okay, and history has proven also that a paper written by Reverend Paul Cover, wrote research on the Lawmans and the Mandingos. You see, sometimes this is a forum that we were invited to speak the truth from what we saw in documents and from what we heard from our traditional, our older folks, you know. And Reverend Cover made a research on the origin of the Lawmans. And just to summarize, he said the father of the Lawman was one of two sons of a Mandingo king known as Falikama. And Falikama was a king in Musadu. And Musadu, you are aware, if you read, most of you read Liberian history, you know that Musadu made a lot of effort to join Liberia. But as we progress in our reading, the reason we explain the reason why they were not accepted to join Liberia. But the Falikama is the father of the two sons. Is the father of two sons, one of which got the Lawmans. And you know, because of time, I cannot go deep into reading our history. Okay. I'd like to just look at two accounts of the existence of Mandingos, Muslims in Liberia before the coming of the colony and the government of Liberia. Especially in the account of Edward Wilmot Bladden, 1867, in his book Christianity, Islam, and the African Race. Edward Wilmot Bladden, in his book, wrote that when he visited Bopolu, well, they refer to it as Boporo, okay, but we call it today Bopolu. He observed that aside from the Quran, he saw libraries with extensive manuscripts in poetry and prose. These books were written in Arabic, and he was glad to translate some of those books to English. Also among the books was war history, the hadith, philosophy. There is an indication of the level of civilization experienced in the Condu Confederacy. So before the coming of the Western civilization, there were already civilizations existing in the Republic of Liberia, in the Condu Confederacy, very close to bombing, moving all the way to Lofa, and taking all of those places, connecting Musadu. So there was a very big confederacy. He added that the Mandingos are an exceeding polite and hospitable people. The restraints of their religion regulate their manners and control their behavior, both in speech and demeanor. They appear always solicitous and anxious to maintain the strictest propriety, and they succeed in conforming to the natural laws of etiquette, of which they seem to have an instinctive and agreeable appreciation. Mr. Bladden continued that the general diffusion of the Arabic language in this country, Liberia, through Muslim influence must be regarded as a preparatory circumstance of vast importance for the introduction of the gospel. So before the coming of the Christians, the Western civilization, the ground was already level, for evangelization, because Islam had gone into the hinterland, and had already educated the people about monotheism. It may be the plan of providence that these many barbarous nations of Africa are to be consolidated under one aggressive empire of ideas and faith to prepare the way of evangelization through the medium of one copious, cultivated, expressive tongue, in the place of leaving to the church the difficult task of translating and preaching in many barbarous languages, incapable of expressing the final forms of thought. So I just made reference to that before the coming of the Western civilization, people were already learning how to read and write. Okay, some tribes have already developed their manuscript. Already some of the vernacular have been enriched by expression from the Arabic for the embodiment of the higher processes of thought. They have received terms regarding the religion of one God and respecting a certain state of civilization, such as marrying, reading, writing, and objects having relation thereto, sections of time and phrases of salutation. So, furthermore, Islam in this part of the world could easily be displaced by Christian influence. So that was the thought. Okay, if Christian organization would enter with vigor into this field, the Reverend G.W. Gibson, rector of the Trinity Church, Monrovia, in a letter published in the spirit of mission for April 1869 says, so this is very much important, whatever may have been the influence of Islam on races in other parts of the world, I think here upon the African, results will prove it to be merely preparatory to a Christian civilization. In this country, and almost immediately in our vicinity, it has recovered millions from paganism without, I think, having such a grasp upon the minds of the masses as to lead them obstinately to cling it in preference to Christianity. With its superior advantages, the same feelings which led them to abandon their former religion for Islam will no doubt lead them still further and induce them to embrace ours when properly presented. I express this opinion the more readily from several interviews I have had lately with prominent parties connected with some of these tribes. So you see, it was not. You see, the conflict was not what was spontaneous, was not natural. The conflict was a creation. The conflict was orchestrated. Okay. So as I made reference to Reverend G.W. Gibson, we are persuaded that with the book knowledge they already possess and their love of letters, many of them will become readily convert of religion, which bring with it the recommendation of a higher culture and a nobler civilization. So that was their thought. And once brought within the pale of Christianity, this Muslim will be a most effective agency for the preparation of the gospel in remote regions, hitherto impervious to European zeal and enterprise, and the work of African generation will proceed with uninterrupted course and unexampled rapidity. So, I'd like to make another reference. As I just made reference, the most important reference I just made to this was that this was orchestration by the settlers here, to expand their control. So it was more political. So religion was used in this perspective, a more political perspective. Okay, Dr. C. Abame Cassell, Liberia, the history of the First Republic. Okay, but this is very, very, because I don't know whether I have more time, I don't have more time. Okay. Okay, to summarize Dr. C. Abame Cassel's paper, he said that there were a lot of efforts made by the Madingos in Bopolu, in Mosado, to join the Republic of Liberia, to an extent where King Boswan is being referred to in history as King Mamora, or and in many books, King Mamora or King Boswan. He visited Liberia on many occasions. Okay, he visited Monrovia on many occasions, and he was a very good friend of the leadership here. And even on Independence Day, he was here. He made a lot of efforts to join Republic of Liberia, but he was denied because of some of the references we just gave with respect to their religious connection. I will go straight to the recommendation. Yeah, because I don't have time, I need maybe 2 hours, yeah, 2 hours, because we can discuss this in just 30 minutes, Okay. But there's some misconception about Islam. Islam is a violent religion, and but I would just like to make some reference. Although in my literature, Abame Cassell and Edward Wilmot Bladden made a lot of references to the hospitality of the Muslims. In the Holy Quran, it says there's a verse that says very clearly that we should accept other people as how they are. Okay, for instance, I read the verse: "To every people we appointed rites and ceremonies which they must follow. Let them not then dispute with you on the matter, but do invite them to your law, for you are surely on the right way. If they do wrangle with you, say God knows best what is you are doing. God will judge between you and us on the day of judgment concerning the matter in which you differ." Al-Hajj 21:76-69. Okay, and I'd like to touch a little on this. For instance, disagreement among people is a divine creation. That's a belief in Islam. That disagreement among people is a divine creation. The Quran declares that a disagreement among the people in divine is a divine norm of creation. If that law had so willed, so the Quran says, if that law had so willed, he could have made mankind one nation. Yet they will not cease to dispute, except those on whom that law had bestowed his mercy, and for this did he create them. Okay, so it is a divine norm. You know, it's in the Quran that if God had will, he would have created one nation, but he didn't create one nation. So he created people of different nations. So those people must live together. Freedom of belief, of religious belief. Islam instructs its adherents never to compel anyone to give up his faith and embrace Islam. Yes, that is written in the Quran. So it's in the Quran. It says, "Let there be no compulsion in religion. Truth thou standeth out clear from error." Surah 256, verse 256. "Had it been that Lord's will, all who are in the earth would have believed. Will that then Muhammad compel mankind against their will to believe? No." The Surah 10, verse 99. In other words, it was neither in Muhammad's own ability, nor was it expected of message he was sent to reveal to compel people to embrace Islam. So there's no compulsion in religion. People are free to practice their own religion. The Quran says that.
Are you into recommendations now? Are you into recommendations now?
Okay. Okay, the way towards tolerance in the Liberian society. We talk about historical tasks, historical traditional tasks. There are about 11 tribes in this country that have same primordial values. They came from almost the same region, they came from the same area, same community. So historians inform us that most nations were founded by people who ran away from prosecution on issues such as religious, social, economic, war, and so on. In the case of Liberia, most of the ethnic groups have several things in common, especially on the regional basis. It behooves the various ethnic groups to cherish those historical events that brought them closer or referenced in the literature. Okay, for example, okay, so that's it. It means that the various tribes in Liberia, they should look for what historical ties or traditional ties that existed between them in the past. It's the common religious value. There are certain things that both Christians and Muslims believe in. That is, thou shalt love your neighbor as yourself. So it's very common, to both religions. So if we want to coexist in a society, we should respect those religious norms. That is, we should respect the fact that thou shalt love your neighbor as yourself. And I don't want to go deep in that. The imperative of why we should live together. There's an imperative why we should live together, because the alternative to not living harmoniously in a society together is chaos. So we don't want chaos. So we must live together peacefully. Okay, the government, we're saying that government should sponsor traditional historical research in Liberia, because there has not been much done on the traditional historical research in Liberia. Okay. And there must be teaching of customs and tradition in schools in Liberia. That must be, prioritized seriously. Teaching of customs and traditions in schools. Teaching and stressing the importance of civil education. Loving your country. What is the importance of being patriotic citizen? What is the country? Why should we subordinate our interests to the interests of our country? So these are values of virtue that must be taught in school. The government must reinforce the tribal authority in the various counties. It's very, very important to reinforce the tribal authority. Like he said that the tribal leaders should get cars, to go on and settle tribal disputes. There must be also the protection of the rights of the minority. The minority must be protected in every society. That's what they should. Prioritizing education, we should. There's a program being carried on by government, at least now, that there should be. We should prioritize education in the country, because when there's ignorance, it's easy for someone to, tell someone, to do something wrong, and the person, and just by giving a penny, so that we should prioritize education in this country. Finally, we should have respect for the Constitution brings about, we should have the respect for our Constitution. If our conscience says this, let's go by it, and we shouldn't differ, from our Constitution. So I'd like to thank you very much. Although the time was not much,
For your presentation this afternoon, Honorable Bwaka Zulu and Honorable Kamara, both of you made presentation on the historicity of culture and religion in Liberia. Honorable Zulu, you spoke from a cultural perspective, and Kamara spoke from an Islamic perspective. Yeah. There should have been a Christian member of the panel who would have presented from the perspective of Christianity. However, this is what we have, and we want to thank you very much. Okay, we heard that person fell ill this morning and had to be rushed to hospital. That's why Brother Foden Capet is in here today. We want to thank you very much for your presentation. All of you traced both culture and the rise of Islam in Liberia to the very foundation, prior to the foundation of the Republic. You agree on a definition of culture, and then you explain how stereotyping and intolerance have induced conflict in our base. We thank you for those. Commissioners will now ask you questions, and then we can commence a dialogue. The question may be posed to you individual members of the panel, or to you both, as the commissioner who's asking prefers. Thank you very much. Commissioner Kubo.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Thank you very much to members of the panel for the presentation that you just made. This particular thematic presentation is very close to my heart, because I believe as a religious leader also that it is imperative that if we're going to unify our nation and fulfill the mandates of the TRC, which has to do with promoting peace, unity, reconciliation, security, etc., that the role of our cultural norms and religious foundation is very important and will continue to be very important. Now, some of the questions and concerns I would just address to the panel as a whole and see where we can go from there. First of all, there was a distinction made between culture and religion, in a sense that culture from its root foundation did not necessarily embrace religion. When you look at early history, like the pre-Old Testament era, where religion in a sense had not come into play yet too much. People were living in harmony with their values and their own ways of life. and they developed multiple cultural spheres. In fact, history showed that there were 21 cultural spheres in history. Today we have 4 that have been brought together. But we see that most of these things have been influenced by the rising of religion. So that's why we see the Old Testament age coming and then the New Testament age that we're living in now. And some predict even a future completed Testament age will come. So all of this seems to be moving us towards a unified world society where we can work together as one in peace and harmony. But what I seem to have a problem with is that how have these values brought in, for example, by religion, influenced the traditional views? In Africa, it seems that religion did not influence our way of life as it should have from a cultural norm. We have a lot of people today who profess to be Islam or Christians, but yet when difficult things come into their life, they tend to revert to their old root way of living. You know, I come and go get it, I go to the medicine man, I'll get wish on you just now. You know, these are Christians, these are Islam, but then suddenly they go back to the old traditional way. So how can we look, how can you express yourself to this issue? How effective have we been able to adapt to religious values, okay, over the years? No matter whether it has been Islamic value, which was the first wave, as you rightly said, that established the foundation for monotheism compared to polytheism, and the second wave, which is Christianity, which brought in another view that not only oneness of God, but that we are his children, which is a conflict in a way between the Islam and the Christians. But each of them are moving us towards a more family spirit, a more unified spirit. So can you address yourself to how effective has Liberia been able to adapt these cultural or these religious norms over the time? Another reason why I'm bringing this kind of question is, you mentioned just now that people feel that Liberia was based on Christian principles. But then you clearly iterated to us the misconceptions in this, how in a sense this country before the coming of the settlers had already been rooted in the religious view of the Islam. And I agree with that. But the question is, at the end, now we find ourselves collectively as a failed state. So whether it was Christian principle, Islam principle, it doesn't make any difference. The key fact is we've all failed in creating the kind of unified, peaceful society that we should have created. So there again, we see the concern about how effective has religion been able to influence the lives of our people. So that's my first question. Could you address yourself to that?
Made reference to in my literature that there can be a correlation, a relationship between culture and religion, and they can also conflict at a certain point in time. But if they do conflict, religion, will triumph at the end of the day, because that is why I say in my literature. Okay, because people have that inherent desire or will for salvation. Everybody is aware that inherently there's a God. That is why some people pray to 3, 4, 5. It's a recognition that there's a God. Even if you worship the river, that is a recognition that there's a God. So there is a inherent, desire in there, for salvation. So if there's a conflict between religion and culture, at the end of the day, religion will triumph. But there are some people who are already immersed in their religion. For instance, you find that the Mandingos, okay? I didn't touch that particular aspect of it. For instance, the Quran tells there's a conflict among other tribes and Mandingos, that why Mandingos don't give their girls' children out, to other people, okay, maybe Christians or something like that. It is a religious injunction in the Quran that says that Muslims should not give their daughters all to a non-Muslim. But a Muslim can marry a non-Muslim. A Muslim can marry a non-Muslim. So that has been some conflict in the past. It's because Islam is a stricter religion. A stricter religion. You have, for instance, you have to observe the 5 daily prayer on time. So if and mostly from the Islamic perspective, women are very weak when it comes to observing the 5 daily prayer. So if a non-Muslim husband, if a Muslim woman marries to a non-Muslim, how, the question is, how will the non-Muslim, remind his Muslim wife, on the observance of the prayer on time. And, and there are many issues, that we could raise in that dimension. But religion and culture, when religion came, for instance, the Muslims, Mandingos in the past, they were worshiping just as, they had a devil thing, and they were in the society, poorer society, and silent society, all the kind of thing. But when Islam came, it changed the Mandingos completely. So Mandingo left from, no Mandingo, Muslims, Mandingo, we joined a poorer society and a silent society again, because those were traditions of old. So religion triumphed in the dimension. So for Muslims, most of the religious tenets were immersed, were taken in, and it became a way of life for them. Although they practice some minor cultures, but the religion is more preeminent. Yeah.
Okay. As the chief would like to address that too, with regards to the concern, do you feel that the traditional people have properly embraced the religion that came to them? You mentioned before that the religion is good because it can just bring you additional knowledge, educate you. But did that education take root in the traditional people, or it was just something, oh yeah, that one is good, but anyway, I got my tea on the side, what would do?
Okay, like what you're trying to say, or your question here is, the answer to your question, I told you from the beginning that and the coming of religion, both religion, Muslim and Christianity, it does not have no effect on the culture. Every human being has their way of living. Nobody will force anybody to do what you don't want to do. But majority of traditional people will feel that Christianity, Muslim does not have no effect. The reason here is, if you were to be in a darkness, somebody can say, well, please move from the darkness and go to the light. Will you have any force on that? So you wouldn't brought education.
Okay, so thank you. You confirmed that fact, that it didn't have any influence really. It was just a sort of education. Okay, next question or concern is, here we're trying to move towards the building of a new society, a new world, where we can coexist. We talk about tolerance. I'm trying to look at the issue of tolerance versus going beyond tolerance. Tolerance is like, not changing, but just bearing the patient. It's like what they call like a conflict resolution method of confining the conflict, but it doesn't solve it, it doesn't uproot it. So as I wonder, because look at this typical example you gave just now. The Islam law will say that you mustn't give your female child out, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, and that's your rule. Nobody expects you to break that rule. Yeah. So, but yet that rule can create a conflict for other people around you. Yeah. Similar with the Christians. You talked about how the Christians came and they made a constitution that didn't embrace the indigenous. Yeah. Because their book says don't be equally yoked with non-believers. So they were following their rule too. So it seems that when we follow these rules of ours, they tend, too strictly at least, they tend to create another base of keeping us from truly uniting. So the question is, where do we go next? How do we advance to that next stage? Because we see now the result of keeping all these separate rules and keeping all this difference between us has brought us all to a failed state. We messed up. It's finished. So here we are getting up again now, trying to go forward, and we are asking, the TRC is asking the religious and traditional people, where do we go next now? We continue the same old way of just tolerating each other and not being influenced by the religion, or is there something better that we can find, learning from the experience of how this tolerance and not changing will only lead to future conflict again? So I don't know if you want to say anything on this issue, then I'm finished.
Yeah, but for first, tolerance is, from my understanding of tolerance is that tolerance is accepting others for what they are. So let us accept, but it is not unique to Liberia. There are other countries that diverge, diversify in terms of people. You know, for instance, you said the United States.
Sorry, could I qualify something? I just left something out. I'm very sorry. If you don't mind.
Yeah.
Please. You know, this issue about accepting others where they are.
Yeah.
For example, the new constitution, the second one that we made, it specified that we should focus on positive cultural elements, not negative. So also another point is this issue of religion. You talk about faith versus cultural norm. Some people have faith in a God of evil, as compared to some who have faith in a God of goodness. Like Christianity, Islam, that's their faith in a God of goodness. But there are some people who worship devil. And so that's their religion. They believe in certain evil things where I have to kill and make human sacrifices to allow me to restore my power and to gain my position. So if you talk about just accepting each other, you can never resolve the problem. We have to find a way to go beyond that general acceptance of each other as we are and deal with the issue of good versus evil. So that's my last.
You see, in looking at tolerance, you know, the best resolution for, you know, having a more tolerant society is the respect for the rule of law. People should respect one another. I respect you for what you are. So I cannot transgress certain boundaries. You know, that's it. This man law says, his religion says that on Sunday he does not go to work. He goes to church, right? On Sunday. This guy religion says on Friday he goes to mosque. So if I'm working in a place, a Christian organization, you know, it is understood, because if I'm filling in the form, I fill in the form as, you know, the actual religion, I say Muslim. So if it's on Friday, I ask you, oh boss, I want to go prayer. So if you have to tolerate me for that, because I'm a Muslim and the society is a diverse society. So if we respect our constitutions and respect the rule of law, then we can have a more tolerant society. And no one group of people should be above the law. Everybody is equal under the law. Once we respect those, you know, the examples are replete all around the world. The great United States of America, diverse people from different all around the world are there. But it's a harmonious society. Respect for the rule of law. I mean, Nigeria, the rule of law all around the world. That's it. So we must respect the rule of law in the country. Nobody should be above the law. So if we respect that, then there will be tolerance in the society. Respect me for who I am. I respect you for who you are. That's it.
Okay, I mean, I won't push the point. That's your view. I respect that. Thank you. I'm finished.
Thank you very much for your presentations. I don't have many questions. However, I have some comments I would like to share. As concerns the two major religions in Liberia, from what we can see that has unfolded in our country over the last plus 100 years, and what we see before us today, it would appear to me that both Christianity and Islam in Liberia have displayed a large degree of contempt for traditional religion. For example, you have what is referred to as the devil. That is an appellation of traditional religious beliefs aligning it with the devil. The devil coming or the devil outside. And those things take carry on today. And when you say the devil, you connote the image of evil. And unfortunately, that is still with us today. From my understanding, traditional religion is rooted in the belief that the Almighty God manifests himself through his creation. And consequently, if you look at traditional societies, nearly every traditional society, they have, what is common to all traditional societies is respect for the sanctity of life, honesty, that if you leave your things outdoor, for example, you will come back the next day and see it there. And if you went into the interior of the country, traditional villages, you'll see that. Respect for people, for the old, for women, and all of that. Respect too also for the balance in nature. That if you went to a tribe, for instance, that you will see that if you look at, say, maybe the Lawman people, you see that each family has a taboo that in their system of belief you cannot kill a bird, and that will refer to chicken. So the person who holds that taboo will not kill a bird, will not even kill a chicken. There may be somebody else who may hold a taboo as concerns certain other animals. So if you put all together, you will see that a combination of all these taboos in a way promotes conservation of nature, respect. But in a way we've seen that traditional religion has been under an assault by the established religions. Maybe you can throw some light and provide some insight as to why this attitude. We have Christian holidays, you have Muslims advocating for the official recognition of Islamic holidays, and yet there is no thought that traditional religion practiced by the majority of our people, there's no thought as to setting aside a particular day to commemorate traditional religion or traditional belief. So perhaps maybe I want to ask, why is there an assault on traditional religion? Why such display of bigotry and contempt for traditional religion? And I must emphasize that religion and culture goes together. Religion is an offshoot of culture, as a matter of fact. So in saying so, I'm saying also that there is contempt for traditional culture and traditional religion by people holding beliefs in the so-called established religions. So why is this so, first, before we go into other?
Yeah, before the coming of the Western civilization, that is the Republic of Liberia, the tribal people in this country were in small political units. They were settled in small political units, chieftain, and then they were practicing their cultural belief, traditional belief, separately. And among them, in fact, the group, as I say in my literature, the group was not homogeneous. It was a heterogeneous group. Maybe you found Pele, you found Lawmans, you found Kisi, you found, or maybe Kran, living in one community, but there's a dominant belief there, and everybody must respect that dominant belief. So you must tolerate the dominant belief of that area. So there came the Western civilization. So when there's a conflict between two values, that is a dominant, powerful value, and minor one.
Please.
The minor one goes below, and the dominant comes above. So, like in Liberia, those that established Liberia were mostly Christians. Okay, so they penetrated the hinterland with their Christian values, and they told those that they met in the hinterland that worshiping rivers, worshiping this, it's not good. There's one God. Let's worship that one God. Okay. As a result of that, they took some of the children of those traditional people, those tribes. They brought them home and they educated them, and the children went by and and inculcated what they learned in their parents. So the traditional beliefs started fading gradually. To an extent where today we are still we are still compiling our traditions, our cultural artifacts, and all these kinds of things. Because to a large extent, there are many young people you ask today about their own traditional belief, they don't know. Or maybe customs, traditions, they don't know. Their way of life. What was their way of life before now? They only know the dominant way of life. They don't know their historical way of life. So, and that's a very serious problem for us. So this is why we make reference in our literature that there is a need to respect the rule of law. If we respect the rule of law, then we, for instance, like I call the rule of law because it made reference to some people worship bird. Some people say you don't kill bird, you don't kill this. But supposing I'm in the Republic, the laws of Liberia does not bar me from or preclude me from killing bird. And I go in a community, and I see the bird, if I kill it, so is that wrong? And so there's a conflict now between laws and religion, and culture. So the preeminent law of that country must be the constitution of that country. So the rule of law is preeminent.
So, but would you agree with those who hold the view that the history of Christianity in Liberia, in Africa, and the history of Islam in Liberia and in Africa generally has been one of conquest and domination and subjugation of indigenous peoples?
Well, history. I mean, if you read a lot of books on history, they say that Islam came and conquer the people and and enforce their religious belief on the people.
And so the Christianity.
Yeah, so Christianity. So yeah, because you see, people are immersed. People are adamant to their belief. They hold their belief very secretly. So if you come and tell someone to leave their belief and take yours, it becomes a conflict. And some conflict will ensue. At the end of the day, although maybe the Christians and the Muslims were dominant forces and they succeeded at the end of the day, but people will not take it on silver platter. There must be conflict. So those conflict, happen. Yeah, there was conflict. There was war that they fought. So history is replete with those examples.
Now, would you agree that there is an attempt, official or unofficial, to institutionalize the two religions as state religions in Liberia?
Well, I don't see any attempt to that effect, but I know that there are two dominant religions in the Republic of Liberia.
If you went to a public program, for example,
there are two dominant values in the country. The two dominant values. If you cut the population of the Republic of Liberia, majority of the people fit in those, even the traditional believer. So even it's difficult to identify who is actually a traditional believer in Liberia. Is it, as you might make reference to? So you either be a Muslim or Christian, or a sympathizer of Muslim or sympathizer of Christian. So these are the group. So there are two dominant forces in Liberia. So
if you recall the points made by my colleague Commissioner Coleman, was that people say, well, they were believers in traditional religion, now they hold beliefs in Christianity, some hold beliefs in Islam, but when they go and things when they go and get stuff, they go back to their beliefs. To me, it's suggestive of the fact that traditional religion has been more accommodating to the intrusions of Western religion, including Islam as well. You come, but intrinsically, our intrinsic values we do not abandon. Like for instance, if there's something that's going on in a village, we want to go, and that we do not understand, we want to go to who you will call a seer, for example, to consult the oracle. You have a situation where, and this manifests itself even in contemporary situations, where talking about the rule of law, and this conflict has come about, where even in Maryland, for example, there was wide reports in the newspapers where people had been, where ritual murders have been committed in Maryland. And in the absence of the rule of law, strong presence of the rule of law, where individuals can be tracked down, individuals who commit crimes can be tracked down and be brought to justice, And people were insisting, the communities were insisting that there were instances before where through consultations with the oracles and diviners, they were able to pinpoint those who had been committing ritual murders, while the police were coming in, not paying any attention to, or not taking into concern, not taking into regards their own traditions and all of that, were not apprehending those who were committing ritual murders in the country and that kind of thing. So what I'm saying is that there has been more or less what you call this onslaught against traditional religion.
Well, let's look at, we are a member of Committee of Nations, and if you look in the world today, there are two most powerful religions, you have Christianity and you have Islam, okay? And as I can tell you that there has been no assault against, traditional belief in Liberia, as my brother just made reference. Because first of all, the chiefs and elders, have been respected. They are called to meetings, and even when there are conflicts, the chief and elders are called, to help to resolve the conflicts. So there has been no assault on that, but there have been some dilution in the traditional beliefs of people in this country because of the emergence of two powerful worldly religions. So on all conditions, you would not practice those traditional beliefs to the fullest. I don't want to go deep into the traditional belief of some people, traditional religion of some people who used to, some tribes in Liberia who used to eat their chiefs. And, when you reach certain age, when you age to certain level, and they said, it's not good for the chief to die. So they kill the chief and they eat the chief, and new person come up. So these are traditions that were practiced, customs that were practiced in Liberia. We don't want to go deep into the history of that, but I can tell you that some of those beliefs, people saw reason to live in them, and for a more, a refined belief. We're not saying that all of the traditions and cultures, practices of the people were wrong, but some of them, people saw reason when they told them, say, look, these are not good, and people saw the reason and said, no, I think we have to do what they did. It's not correct. It was handed down to us by our great grandparents. So as I said, culture is acquired. So they acquire it, but someone they didn't understand it, and but they just practiced it. They were repressed. They practiced it, because it was handed down to them by their grandfather, great grandfather, and then later on they saw reason and they left it. So there has been no assault at any time on the traditional people of this country, because the traditional people are called to meetings, they are called to resolve conflict, and they have their ceremonies at all times in Liberia. So there's no assault. Yeah.
Okay, I would not want to make this a debate, an argument. Perhaps maybe your colleague can maybe respond to some of these concerns. I'm saying, as you somebody representing the tradition, I'm saying that what has happened, what appears is that traditional religion is not placed on the same level like the other religions. How much, and religion and culture go together, how much, to what extent, for example, do you have traditional education incorporated into your educational systems? To what extent? Traditional people live with nature. They know the trees, they know the leaves, and they know which trees can provide medication for what and what and what through hundreds of years of experience. But to what extent is such knowledge incorporated into your modern learning system? That's just one of the ways in which traditional religion, beliefs, and values are denigrated and sideswept and replaced by other values. I don't know whether you would disagree.
Well, I don't understand why you are saying traditional religion. Because as far as we are concerned, in Liberia here, we only have two religions. What do you mean by traditional religion? What do you mean by that? It means the traditional way of practicing?
That's just what I mean.
Oh, let me tell you something, my brother. This is what we're talking about. We said about culture. Culture got their way of practicing. That's not tradition. I mean, that's not a religion. Like I heard you saying they have all their medicine. Let me tell you something. Medicine is not about people take medicine to be bad thing. Especially if you do it with your bad faith. But don't you know sometimes traditional medicine can kill people?
I know that.
Okay. If you do it right, God pays you. If you do it wrong, God also pay you. So I don't think nothing wrong with that. It live with you that doing it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank God. And that's it.
Hello. I want to say to both of you, Chief Boyka Zulu, and other panelists, Mr. Kamara, thank you very much for coming, and we share similar views. I'm Commissioner Pearl Brown Bull, and I'm from originally parents from the Degola tribe and the Americo-Liberians. Because my grandfather came here in 1870 and married my grandmother from the Degola tribe. But like what you said, Chief Boyka Zulu.
They am your uncle. You got from the Dane tribe.
Yeah, from the Bloodnama era, Broadway era.
Okay.
But like what you said, Chief Boyka Zulu, that in your paper, each person should not be judged based on your tribal background, but his behavior or content of his character. So, despite the fact that I have those roots, I, Pearl Brown Bull, want to be judged by my content, my character, my education, and what I can contribute to Liberia as a Liberian. But notwithstanding that, it's important to not to forget from whence you come. Because if you know from whence you come, then you know where you want to go. In your paper, Chief, you talk about the various cultures in Liberia, but you admonish us that they have coexisted, and most what we need is tolerance, respect, and the ability to coexist. Because if we can just respect each other to coexist, we will have peace. I'm summarizing your paper, what I listened to you say. You also made recognition of the two religion, Muslim, Islam, and Christianity. I can say at some time I did practice both reading, studying Islam, the Quran, and was born as a Christian. You have, because both what we've done, you show that it informs and educates. Because the only thing people will try to castigate another religion because you don't have knowledge of that religion.
So true.
But if anything you don't know, you ignorant. When you tell somebody ignorant, they give thanks. But when you don't know, you ignorant of it. So it has become something of my own personal feeling to be able to be informed. I read the Quran. In fact, the Quran was given to me by an eminent person in the community, for which I appreciate. When I started reading the Quran, I found out that some of these things in the Bible. So if people could continue to be informed and educated, they will not start looking at things and start resenting people because of ignorance. And some people can become very arrogant based on their ignorance. So you told us about Christianity and Islam and the formal education. And when they found out, they will see why Liberia was founded. People read the constitution, original constitution they put in there, they only see one part, but they don't talk about the other part. If you even read that, the people when they came, they talk about Christianizing and educating people. Because if you're not educated, you can be brainwashed and fooled. We realize and we don't read. Because we found out that before the people came here, people worship God. The Muslims were here before, but people just took Muslim only with one tribe, Mandingos, and maybe the Vais. We have a rich culture that we should appreciate. That's why I'm saying we all Liberians, but we should not forget from whence we came. And in your paper, you talk, and most of this are coming to, in our culture and religion, they talk about the family. It was based everything around the family. So these societies, these fraternal societies that people try to curse because they don't know whether the traditional, the porous, the sandy, never contribution. Because they taught the girls them how to prepare for womanhood, how to prepare for family. Because the core of our country based on the family. If you got self-reared people, like now you see children in the street rearing themselves. If you self-rear, how you can rear somebody else? How you can rear and nurture the country?
No.
The country only founded on family. So the Sunni society, they taught people the poor manhood, many things. And most of all, in your paper, Chief Boyka, you reminded us and you stress, this was the truth, that our traditional institution at a point during our war were eradicated because fighters entered the secret places and destroy our symbols and valuable items. We're talking about the civil crisis and we're looking for the truth what happened. And you underscore that. Don't think that I was not listening to you when you were talking. My mind went way back and I started thinking, yes, they desecrated it. Thank God they didn't reach Monrovia to even desecrate this shrine that people still talk about this thing. But if you look at the shrine and you look there, you will see indigenous people, you will see the people in their tail coat, the semblance. But because most time people are not educated, they only talk what they hear, and people talk what they want you to hear. Right across the road, and here we have our little museum with books that you can do research. Thank you very much, Mr. Kamara, because you did give a history. Each tribe, we're talking about people came here and they did bad. When you look, you can who all got PhDs, and you will see the names behind it. They say people were not involved in government. But you go back and find out who was the minister of education. You will hear the massacre from Kidman. You will hear King. You will hear Flaman Sherman. You will hear E.J. Yancey. People didn't even know who sat in these places when they come and say when people didn't have part in government. Those people who got PhDs. But at a minute, that's why I say if you want to know where you're going, you must remember from whence you come. But most people from whence they come, where they reach where they are, they don't want to go back there to share and do research on their culture, to know their tribe, what happened. You want to talk about the Cold War in America, the Sino-Soviet split, and talk about writing theses on other technology and things, and leaving from whence you come. So let us not forget from whence we come, because we know where we want to go. So I want to say thank you very much, because that point, and you asked for us to support or encourage traditional institutions. Nothing wrong with the Sani society, nothing wrong with the poorer, and those who talk about the Mason and Eastern Star, they ain't been there, because when you find out all these things have religious tenets. thank God I member all the Sunny, the East Mason, the Eastern Star, the International Order of Good Templar, the Household of Ruth, the Sister of Mysterious Ten. Because if people were joining these things, they show you certain values to live and interact with people, coexist, and talk about the final end. Love your neighbor as yourself and do unto others as you have them do to you. I want to say thank you and implore everybody to find out from whence you came, when you people came here, because most people don't know when they came, when their grandparents, and go back to the tradition. This is what we need in this country. And I want to say to you, thank you very much. May you all continue to carry on the tradition, put the pieces together, the dance, the culture dance, that what people were slim and not fat like us, because the exercises, but you all have to do it. Because those children who sitting out there, they don't know anything. They only what the people brainwash them. Nobody could brainwash me to come and fight you ma and fight you pa and fight you brother. Because the Christians there, when they came, they say, thou shalt not kill. That if you kill, you will not go to God. The final thing. So these people who did these things here, they forgot their culture. Either they forgot it or they never learned it. But y'all can let us go back to the old time way. Because we too have contributed to society. Not just locally, but internationally. So let us take cue. Because those who see change the motto, when I heard you sitting talking here, I say I agree. Everybody came from somewhere. It's just they came different times. And in pursuit of happiness and liberty, the love for liberty brought all of us here. Because why? It was nothing but green forest, the green coast. We sitting down now, we went to the 15 counties. Certain places can't be reached. I want us to just ponder 1822, 1847, when there were big rivers and nothing but forests and snakes and elephants. The people who came here not even know where they were going. With fever time, mosquitoes I'm sure were more than now, but perhaps they were not as much as now, because the people were not as dirty as they are here now. But people died. So how they even knew how many square miles Liberia was? There were intertribal wars. The Degola War was fought for 7 years. The Sastan War, the Cruton War, the Grippo War. We've had more than 100 wars to make sure 33 wars. Check Dr. Melvin Mason's book, Land and Disputes in this country. You will see the number of wars and the reason why it was fought. So when these people came, and that's the reason why people tribes decided to annex with some of these people who came with guns for protection. So let us really find out why things happen the way it happened instead of us jumping to conclusion. Because we all find out the Green Coast. So people didn't even know who were where, who were this thing, where people were. And you say you didn't include this one. Up until now, we haven't included everybody. They divided the country into 15 political subdivisions. That's how we have it now. Like you said, Lofa. You just told us today. So when Tottenham, they made Lofa a county, they didn't just get our name Lofa. They were already there before their existence. That's what we want. Today we've learned a lot, and we hope other people will come. This is the traditional religious time. We have more than 1,000 churches in this country. We have everybody now seeing the traditional. Traditional is not just dancing and shaking your body with beads. Tradition is really teaching the morals and the values and the mores of tribe. So those who honor the sound of my voice and listening will be here until Friday, Saturday. I want to see the traditional people come here. I want to see the prayer bands, the churches, the council of churches, the different religious groups, the people who prophesy. Come now. Because we can ask your question, you all can interchange, because this is the time. Tomorrow will be too late. When we have made our decision, then you all will stand in the pulpit and condemn me and say we didn't do it. The time, one whole week, we gave it to the religious and traditional people. Sir, the fighters desecrated the places and destroyed our symbols. But also the elders and traditional people contributed to the human rights violations and abuses. From testimonies given here, when President Doe, before he killed Winston and the other 3 or 4 people, he called on the traditional chiefs to ask them questions. I think one of the same witnesses who came here Friday or so, one of their father were big chiefs. You know what they told Doe to do in parable? They didn't say forgive our son. They try to tell you when somebody happened to them what to do. The Queen Park incident, people talk, they call the chiefs and they talk. The PPP time, the same thing, they will consult the leaders, the so-called traditional leaders. When they send for them, they sit down, they come. Instead of telling the people, don't do this, do that, they go along. So they too, we can say, contributed in some way or another. And as a chief, long time, maybe you can help me on that. If you really know the truth. That's what happened. They gave, went along with the flow. Now they asking for a pickup and car. And you get a car with do so and so. They don't want Rakinos again. But when you get a car in the counties here, you see the county car running up and down. You don't see them back there. So I want you to please talk, because we also talk about institutional reform. So please talk on that. Thank you.
Okay, what all you just said here concerning about do this, leadership is like dress, let me dress. Dress, let me dress. I only have seen today because I am there. The day that you're talking about, I was not there. Yeah. So I want to talk on like you are saying, they were sitting down there, they don't make and they not come in. But I think if you go down to my recommendation, I am saying that whosoever do whatsoever, today say we want peace, we should forgive them. So you must join. You must look at me, but I'm saying the people who do their own in the past, I have not power then. So I want to talk on my own, because leadership at the time I was not leader, I can't say anything. But say I am leader today, I think you heard me saying that I am the vice chairman of the National Traditional Council of Liberia for elder affairs. Now the elder position in any country is to make peace. So this is why all what I say here in my closing topic, let make peace and forgive our brother and sister. So that's what I gotta say.
And I hope that they don't do it again.
If we forgive him, then before you forgive somebody, you got to tell him something. Today I'm forgiving you because you wasted water. But the next time you waste the water, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. So that's it. Thank you.
Chiefs and Brother Kamara, we want to thank you very much for your presentation. For you, Chief, you have opened a new page of peaceful coexistence among the various cultural and religious groups. I'm saying this to say that I have had interaction with traditional people over 30 years. But this is my first time of seeing a traditional man come in with a written document to speak in public about the role of tradition and culture. In the past, tradition and culture being practiced in secrecy. And that is one of the differences between the religion and the culture. The Christian Bible you find everywhere in the market. Whether you're Christian or you're not Christian, if you want to buy a copy of it, you can buy it. And you buy it in order for you to read and know what is inside. Likewise, the Holy Quran. The Quran is available in the market. You want to buy it to know the contents of the Holy Quran, you buy it. But it is difficult to see a traditional book that teaches the norms, the tradition, and the social life of our people. Otherwise, the name that Commissioner Stewart referred to, calling the deity of the traditional people as devil, that language is a foreign language. No traditional tribe, no traditional man call it deity as devil. But because the Westerners saw us using masks to cover our face, and devil picture has been presented that way, so it's been called as devil. Otherwise, no traditional man can call your zoo or your deity that you worship as devil. That is foreign language, and we must try to see how that can be corrected. The second thing that I want to thank you for is that you, the first traditional person that have appeared in public to say Christianity and Islam do not or did not affect the culture, but the two help to refine the cultural life. And I can agree with you, because it's written in many historical books, and was said here by Commissioner Stewart, that in the past, if you left behind you a piece of material of value, you can go to Kakata and come back, you will meet right there. What was the rationale? It was the belief of the traditional people that that thing could not be left there idly. Perhaps the jinn, the jinnah, pour that in there so that when you touch it, you will get crazy or you will lose life. So to avoid losing life, to avoid getting crazy, to avoid getting sick, you leave it. That's how things used to be left behind. Christianity and Islam came to say, look, if you want to do anything, do it for God. Don't do it because you're scared of Jinnah or you're scared of somebody else. Do it because God said you should do it, and God said you should not do it.
So true.
So that's the refinement you were talking about. That it came to make good the culture. So we want to thank you.
Thank you
for that presentation. We also want to thank Brother Kamara for the definition that he gave to culture. And also that diversity added in language, in physical structure, in tradition, are all norms of human creation. It is God who created us into different tribes and nationalities, give us different languages,
give us different colors, and give us different way of life. So if we understand that, then we will appreciate that in diversity there is wealth. There are many things you can learn. And I think one thing all of us who are here, we the commissioners, those who are here listening, and those over radio line need to know that both religion and culture have commonality and have differences. For example, a religion can be classified into major three entities. One is doctrinal. The traditional people believe in the existence of the Almighty God. But they also believe that you cannot reach to that God. You got to pass through the soul, through some other entities, other being, then you can get to God. That is their doctrinal belief. The Christianity believed in the Trinity. The Son, the Father, and the Holy Ghost. That is their belief. That is their doctrinal belief. Then the Muslims believe that there is only one God. No Son, no Holy Ghost. Muhammad is a servant of God, a messenger. So, you have three perceptions of doctrine. Then the second classification is devotion. Now having recognized God as your faith, your culture tells you, the question now, how can you come closer to that God? How do you worship that God? The Muslim says, you want to worship that God, you have to learn the teachings of Muhammad and follow his footsteps. The Christians say, you want to see God, you got to pass through Jesus. You got to believe in him as his son. And go to Sunday place of worship. And the Muslims talk about Friday place of worship and praying 5 times daily. The traditional people believe you make sacrifice. Even if you're eating, you must put small right on the ground so that you can reach to the dead bodies. The dead body will take the message to God. If you want to drink, waste small water on the ground. So we have divisions in that. We have differences in that. But where there is no inherent contradiction or difference is the question of ethics. The Christians have 10 commandments. The Muslims have 70 commandments, including the 10 that were given to the Christianity. Among you don't kill human being. You don't steal. You don't lie. You don't commit adultery. You don't disobey your parents. You don't disrespect the elderly people. You don't hate the younger people. Those are ethics that both Christianity and Islam respect very highly. The traditional people have the same respect. They don't agree to steal. In where I was born and grew up, people used to point their finger at prostitute. They call it gadia. Discredit people. Discredit person. Person who do not respect her own dignity. Gadia. You steal In those days, the post stake behind you, tie your hands because you are violated. You kill, they do the same thing to you. So the same thing that the Bible, the Quran say we should not do, it is also there, beside the doctrinal aspect of it. I think it is but time that we begin to study what are the Christian doctrine, what are the Muslims' doctrine, what are the traditional doctrine, and what is our devotional way of life. And of course, doctrine is directly between you and God. Devotion is between you and God. But ethics is not only between you and God, but how you live with your fellow man in a society. How you respect the rights of your fellow man. How you talk to your fellow man. That is something that builds a wholesome functioning society in a community. And I think the intent behind this religious and cultural thematic hearing is to afford the commission to guide some of these facts and put together for a better Liberia. So we want to say to you, thank you very much. We appreciate your presentation, and we hope that you, Chief, you will encourage the traditional elders so that they are scholarly people within the tradition. Let them put your doctrine, your devotion, and your ethics into writing so that not only the growing people will read it, but even the children will be able to learn it in school so that people will begin to respect, because you cannot respect anybody's feeling except you know that feeling. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's all.
For patiently answering your questions and getting involved in this dialogue with the Commission. Without doubt, we have learned a lot. You have contributed very significantly to the work of the Commission, and we hope you remain available at any time when the Commission sees the need to call on you for further comments, for more information, for inspiration, and all of that. So we thank you very much. This panel discussion has just come to a close. But before we leave, we ask you if you have anything lastly you want to say to the Commission, to the people of Liberia who are listening before we leave. Chief, any final word, anything you just want to say before we leave?
The only thing I want to say here is, if you leave your house and go pull ideas together, and then your brothers and sisters look at your ideas, it's in place, it's only to tell each other thank you. And we'll be willing to come by here anytime you call upon us. And like what Sheikh is saying, that we should at least hold the value of the traditional people, we will not leave it. Because if we leave it, any country with all tradition in another country. Nobody here can come here, like you say, me, my own country, no tradition there. Anybody who say that, then I don't think where he coming from. So any country with all tradition is another country, and if you say we want to hold fast to the tradition, we dare to hold fast to it with your support. Thank you.
Hello? Yeah. I'd like to tell the commissioners, the chairman and the commissioners a very big thank you for inviting me to come and deliver the paper on the topic assigned me. I would like to stress one recommendation here that, one of the reasons why we even went through the crisis is because of the level of ignorance, for in our society. There's a serious need for government of Liberia to prioritize education. And not education superficially, but education containing, our cultural values, teaching civil education, and how do we appreciate our society, how we're supposed to live together in a society, what is the essence of living harmoniously in our society. These things I think should be taught in school. We should even have programs, traditional programs, where people from all the various tribes will come and, practice their tradition in front of people, exercise it, so that people can appreciate one another, tradition. But we just go and learn the mere Western book and without, knowing ourselves. So that's ignorance in another way. You can know all the secular book, you don't know your own tradition, you don't know yourself. That's being ignorant still. So there's a need for my recommendation, in a summation, is that the government of Liberia should prioritize, education in this country in the essence I just gave. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I forgot something I want to say. Something slipped from all of my mind. You see, we have many NGO here. Are you people with me? We have many NGO here. But I want for we the Liberian people to tell Cattle Center people thank you. Cattle Center people have spent their money to hold workshop in all the 15 counties to be able to carry the message of tradition and also the rule of law. They have been educating us. We went from county to county. The other time we do it on 5 county to Bombay. Then the other time again we have another 5 county to Banga. Then the other time again we have a 5 county to Zedru. They have been spending their money to pull us together and making us to understand those that took gun the last time and run behind their brothers, that is not good. They are educating us all over and advising the people not to do so, and we should respect rule of law. So Cattle Center people, they have been doing well for the National Transition Council of Liberia. So that's the message I want to give you here.
We think it's a very clear message, and it is important. We're happy that Cattle Center is partnering with traditional leaders to educate the people about their civil rights and our obligation to our country and our fellow men. So we thank you all very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to bring this segment of our thematic hearings to a close. Can we give the panelists a round of applause? With that, Mr. Hearing Officer, we'll close now and resume at 3 o'clock with the continuation of the hearings on the contemporary history of the conflict. I know you have an announcement, you can make that, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Just want to announce that we are inviting our discussants, the panelists, and our special guests who are here. Invite you to a lunch behind the curtain. So you just give us 5 minutes, let's set up, and then we can come in. Thank you very much. And 3 o'clock, we'll resume our hearings.